Netanyahu revealed the ultimate goal of the military operation against Iran, which today forced the Iron Dome to fire on its own. Route recalculated. Almost 3,000 Russian tourists are stranded in the United Arab Emirates. Flights are constantly being canceled. The beaches are closed and the streets are flooded. Today, Sochi experienced one of the strongest blows from the elements. Today, a large-scale humanitarian exchange was completed, which Russia and Ukraine agreed upon in Istanbul at the beginning of the month. According to the Ministry of Defense, today another 1,248 bodies of fallen Ukrainian armed forces soldiers were handed over to the Ukrainian side. In total, over these days, representatives of Kyiv have received the repatriation of 6,060 bodies. Thus, Russia has fulfilled all its obligations. The Ministry of Defense emphasized that they are ready to hand over another 2,239 bodies of fallen Ukrainian soldiers and officers to representatives of Kyiv. The sharp escalation of the conflict between Israel and Iran became the main topic of a phone conversation between Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Both presidents condemned Tel Aviv's use of force against Tehran, which was carried out in violation of the UN Charter and other norms of international law. Putin and Erdogan called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and supported resolving any disputed issues, including those surrounding Iran's nuclear program, through political and diplomatic means. The presidents of Russia and Turkey also discussed Ukraine. Vladimir Putin expressed his gratitude for the organizational support provided for direct Russian-Ukrainian negotiations and noted that Russia is strictly adhering to the agreements reached during the meetings in Istanbul. As before, Russia remains ready to act as a mediator in resolving the conflict between Israel and Iran. This was confirmed today by the press secretary of the Russian president.
Over the past few days, Putin has held a number of important international phone conversations. He spoke with Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Pezeshkian, and President Trump. Russia maintains its readiness to provide mediation services if necessary. This includes the proposals that President Putin previously outlined during his earlier conversation with President Trump, which are still on the table.
Earlier, the U.S. president stated that he is open to a possible initiative from Vladimir Putin to act as a mediator in resolving the conflict between Iran and Israel. But the European Union is not happy about this. French President Macron stated that Russia supposedly cannot be an objective mediator. And in an interview with French media, Iran's ambassador to Paris said that his country is not at war with Israel, but is simply forced to defend itself in accordance with international law. Meanwhile, Israel has no intention of stopping. As Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated, the new goal is not only to end the nuclear program, but also to change the entire Iranian regime. Igor Baldin will continue.
This is Iran's strike on a power plant near Haifa. In central Israel, the lights go out for several hours. Missiles, including hypersonic ones, are launched at an oil refinery. Explosions are heard at the Israeli Air Force Base in the Negev. The sound of sirens doesn't stop even in Tel Aviv. Several houses have been partially destroyed. One of the missiles lands near the American embassy. The death toll on both sides has surpassed 1,000 in just 4 days of armed conflict. And apparently, the number of casualties will be much higher.
The residents of Tehran will have to pay for this, and very soon.
The Israeli army is striking bases of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps near Zanjan, targeting surface-to-surface missile launchers. Tel Aviv reports 2 Iranian intelligence leaders killed. A strike is also carried out on Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The United States, whose missiles Israel is now using to strike Iran, is sending the aircraft carrier Nimitz and several escort ships from the South China Sea to the Persian Gulf, in effect fueling the growing flames of war, while officially speaking in favor of peace.
I think it's time for them to come to an agreement, but we'll see what happens.
Did you ask Israel to stop striking Iran?
No, I didn't say that.
It all started on June 13th with a large-scale Israeli attack on Iran called Operation Rising Lion. Tel Aviv struck Iranian military bases and nuclear facilities. Several generals were killed, as well as leaders of the nuclear project, including nuclear scientists. The official reason was the claim that Iran was allegedly close to creating a nuclear bomb.
We must set back the development of Iran's nuclear program by many years.
This refers to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968. Those who signed it, including Iran, are prohibited from working on developing an atomic bomb. Since 2004, the United States has accused Tehran of violating this agreement.
Neither the amount of uranium nor its level of enrichment indicates that we are developing a bomb. According to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Iran has the right to this peaceful scientific activity.
In fact, Tehran and Washington were already close to reaching a nuclear deal.
We were holding negotiations. In the midst of the diplomatic process, we faced an act of aggression from the Israeli regime, supported by the U.S., and that rendered the negotiations meaningless.
Even now, Iran is ready to provide guarantees that it will not develop nuclear weapons. But it seems the West doesn't want that. They're once again fueling the engines of war.
Israel has the right to self-defense. Iran is the main source of regional instability.
And the Prime Minister of Israel goes even further.
So, is regime change one of your goals?
Could very well be the result of our actions, because the regime in Iran is currently very weak. Basically, it only has two things left: plans to build atomic bombs and plans to build ballistic missiles.
At an emergency IAEA meeting, it was confirmed damage was inflicted on the Iranian nuclear facility in Natanz and the test site in Isfahan. Considering that Israel also has its own nuclear program, the Middle East is hanging by a thread from a major catastrophe. Igor Baldin, Mikhail Okotnik, Izvestia, reporting especially for REN TV.
The threat of a nuclear disaster in the region has caused real panic among Israelis. A mass exodus has begun from the Jewish state. A group of Israelis took the opportunity to fly from Tel Aviv to France. But at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, they were met with whistles and disapproving shouts. The outrage of ordinary Europeans was sparked by Israel's new aggression against its neighbors. The IDF hadn't even finished its operation in Gaza before starting another conflict, this time with a country it doesn't even share a border with. Nearly 3,000 Russians, who are unable to leave the United Arab Emirates, remain hostages of the Iran-Israel conflict. Iran's airspace remains closed for now, and it will take time to set up new logistics, but there is still no exact timeline. Stanislav Grigoriev will continue.
This chilling scene was filmed by a passenger on a plane from Saudi Arabia. It shows the launch of Iranian ballistic missiles heading toward Israel. The situation is extremely dangerous for everyone in the air. That's why dozens of flights in the Middle East have been canceled right now, and thousands of tourists are spending the night wherever they can.
I'm currently at the airport, waiting for my flight to Ekaterinburg. The flight was originally scheduled for 10:50 p.m. In the end, it was first delayed by 4 hours, then by 2, then by another 2, and then by an hour each time. This went on until 2:30 in the morning, after which we were taken to a hotel in another.
Russian citizens were among many others. Flight delays started immediately after Iran and Israel began exchanging rocket attacks. But our tourists found out about their problems not from tour operators, but, you could say, from random people like hotel staff, for example.
Neither our tour operators nor our guides said anything about it. We asked questions, but they just went completely unanswered. They ignored us. And only thanks to the team at the reception desk did we finally get an answer that our flight was canceled.
Irina claims the tour operator abandoned the travelers to their fate. 5 hours of waiting in the hotel lobby with a broken air conditioner nearly drove her crazy. The Russian Association of Tour Operators disagrees with these complaints.
In fact, organized tourists once again turned out to be the most protected in this situation. It was independent travelers, those who buy their own plane tickets, who ended up unprotected.
According to the Russian Consulate General in Dubai, flight delays and cancellations in the United Arab Emirates and neighboring countries have affected about 10,000 Russians in total. Those who suffered the most were the ones using low-cost airlines, the so-called budget carriers. They save on fuel and are willing to fly around Iran on the way to Moscow. But now the problem is gradually being resolved. Some tourists will be transported to Central Asian countries, for example, Uzbekistan, and from there they will be taken to Russia on other planes.
For now, the target date is the 17th, which means there are still 4 days to go. And overall, well, there still isn't a final decision yet. No one is giving us any guarantees that we'll be back on the 17th.
Also, the first flight of the budget airline Air Arabia has departed from Sharjah to Moscow. It will fly around Iran. The flight will be unusually long, but at least many tourists will make it home. However, there are also some Russians who were actually happy about the flight delays from Dubai.
Just another day at the beach. Cristiano Ronaldo is playing nearby.
A video went viral on social media from a Russian tourist who's enjoying the view of the sea and the famous soccer player. As they say, she's not bothered by anything. She has no urgent business back home, but Ronaldo is here. Stanislav Grigoriev, Sofia Melnichenko, Izvestia, reporting exclusively for REN TV.
The conflict in the Middle East is driving oil markets crazy. After another round of missile strikes, the price of Brent crude oil jumped by 4%. At its peak, the futures were trading for more than $78. The price of WTI crude oil also went up, increasing by 1.5%. By morning, the quotes had pulled back a bit, but the trend remained. Moreover, experts say that prices could skyrocket to a staggering $130 per barrel if Iran decides to close the Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly 40% of the world's oil is transported. Today in Latvia, Deputy Alexei Rozlikov was detained. He became known for publicly defending his native Russian language during discussions in the Saima about the so-called de-Russification. Rozlikov spoke out in defense of Russian-speaking citizens and reminded the authorities that without these people, Latvia's economy would not be able to develop. But the authorities began to persecute the parliamentarian. On June 9th, a criminal case was opened against him on 2 charges, supporting Russia and inciting interethnic hatred. Latvian special services conducted searches in the apartments of Rozlikov himself and his parents. The deputy is now already free. He has been placed under a travel ban.
My defense from the parliamentary podium and against the bills of the National Alliance, that's what they call aggression here. As for cooperation with Russia, it's clear that no one will find anything. There's absolutely nothing like that even mentioned. But the charge was convenient to show the whole society, the entire public, and to give them a reason to start searching my home. So, friends, as of today, the situation is normal.
Let me remind you that after his powerful speech in the Saima, graffiti supporting Deputy Rozlikov started appearing all over Latvia. He himself stated that he will continue to defend the rights of Russian-speaking citizens of Latvia and called on his supporters not to give up, even considering that the authorities are increasing the pressure. The searches in Rozlikov's house were carried out in the presence of children, the deputy said, for a more convincing psychological impact. In the northern capital, the final touches are being put in place right now for the launch of a global economic dialogue. There are just 2 days left until the start of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, one of the most significant and large-scale business events in the world. 20,000 people from 140 countries have confirmed their participation. The first guests have already arrived in St. Petersburg. The president of the International BRICS Forum shared her expectations for the upcoming work at the forum with our channel.
This year, the main focus is on digitalization and climate change. We are working on digitalization to implement a variety of projects in BRICS countries. Digitalization, artificial intelligence, and neurotechnologies are very important. I think small and medium-sized businesses, as well as agriculture, also play an important role right now. I'm from India, and India is strong in agriculture and in the small and medium business sector. I believe this year we will have more opportunities for good cooperation.
The St. Petersburg International Economic Forum will run until June 21st. On Friday, as is tradition, Vladimir Putin will speak at the plenary session. Today, the record pace of Sevastopol's development was discussed in the Kremlin. Governor Mikhail Razvozeyev came to report to the president. Vladimir Putin noted the rapid growth of industrial production, an increase of 18% at once. They also discussed agriculture, especially winemaking. Multi-billion investments are planned to create a wine tourism center in Sevastopol.
Very serious money is being invested in this area. They've set up what's called the Grape Express for tourists along the railway. So there are several stops on the train. Of course, the tastings then take place at the wineries. I just wanted to mention that. I was just watching. Everyone was following the events for Victory Day when foreign delegations were being hosted.
There were only Russian wines.
Yes, and there was Crimean wine there, but it was wine from the Sevastopol terroir, Blandina, grown in Sevastopol. That's a special source of pride for us.
A new factory has been built there. And what?
It's just that a brand new factory was built in the city completely from scratch. Nothing like that had happened for many years, especially on such a large scale. And they also planted vineyards. And, well, $4.5 billion is a very serious investment. It's a full-fledged complex. There will also be a winemaking museum and a tourist center there. So these guys were in a different line of business, but they brought their investments to Sevastopol, which has had a really positive impact. And
Increment 242.
Increment. Yes, and that's just the beginning because they plan to keep investing there.
As for Sevastopol's cultural cluster, according to the governor, construction of the museum should be completed this fall and the theater next year. Today, one of the most famous children's centers in the world is celebrating its birthday, a place every school child once dreamed of visiting. On June 16th, 1925, RTEC was founded. Today, it turns 100 years old. Back then, it all started with just 4 tents on the shore and truly makeshift conditions. But today, it's a whole city that can host thousands of children in just one session. RTEC has grown significantly. Of course, its history has seen both highs and some pretty tough lows. Anastasia Karchenko will tell us all about it.
With the first rays of the sun on the peak of Eudag, a mysterious initiation ritual takes place. Now, they're not just kids anymore. They're RTEC campers.
We swear, we swear, we swear.
RTEC is the largest children's center in the world, a unique national achievement. It began welcoming pioneers in the 3rd year after the Soviet Union was founded. Every child dreamed of coming here. In the late 50s, RTEC started hosting international sessions, and in 1983, during the Cold War between the USSR and the USA, American Samantha Smith, the youngest ambassador for peace, visited here. Back then, together with other RTEC campers, she sealed a message in a bottle, hoping that the next generation would not let them down. Today, exactly 100 years after the camp was founded, a time capsule was placed at the spot where the very first lineup took place. It will be opened by RTEC campers in the year 2125.
We are confident that Russia will remain strong, sovereign, prosperous, and peaceful for the next 100 years as well. To make that happen, all of us need to work hard together. And here in RTEC, all the conditions for that have been created.
Leonid Brezhnev, Lev Yashin, Indira Gandhi, Valentina Tereshkova, Yuri Gagarin, all these people who inspire us with their example also visited RTEC. Andrei Grigoriev Apollonov, the lead singer of the band Agonishki, came here as a teenager and returned many years later after he had become a celebrity.
I made friends from all over the Soviet Union back then. For many years, I kept in touch. We wrote letters to each other, sending them to Tashkent and Voronezh and Vladivostok. It was awesome. I have the fondest memories. And later, as Ivanishki, we came back to perform for the kids who were spending time there.
Getting in here was very prestigious. The camp was considered the best. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, RTEC, along with Crimea, became part of another country. Hard times followed.
Gradually, by 2013, RTEC had deteriorated so much that when we came under Russian jurisdiction, not a single square meter met the standards of Rospotrебnadzor. In other words, we had no right to accept children at all.
Funding for RTEC was drastically reduced. It was even temporarily closed, and they almost completely stopped giving out free vouchers. The legendary Soviet paradise for children had almost lost its former glory. The reboot began in 2014. We had to restore almost the entire infrastructure. In 11 years, they reconstructed 23 kilometers of roads, 3 promenades, a medical center, built a center for additional education, and the RTEC Arena. Now it's a unique center with new buildings added. The tallest outdoor climbing wall in Russia. Sports fields, tennis courts, a rope park, modern swimming pools with seawater. And what has remained unchanged in RTEC for 100 years, the calling card, is the breathtaking views. Previously, the Children's Center could accommodate about 6,000 children a year. Now, it's more than 45,000. Once again, getting a spot here has become a reward for achievements. School children come to Artek, including those from the reclaimed historical regions, and a branch has even opened in the Zaporozhye region.
I came from the city of Luhansk, and this is already my 4th time at Artek. I really like everything here. I came to the centennial celebration with my favorite group.
Today, there are almost 1 million applications to the Artek International Children's Center. We are open, and we are waiting for you.
Over the past 100 years, Artek has gone through many stages, and today, without a doubt, it is experiencing a period of flourishing.
Only together can you all create this miracle. You guys are awesome!
Right now, the Children's Center is taking part in all kinds of national projects. The major construction never stops, and the plan is to turn Artek into the best place on Earth, a place where the future of our country is shaped. Anastasia Karchenko, Ivan Kovalev, Oleg Zaikovsky, Ksenia Odintsova, Violeta Babykova, and Maria Minorskaya, Izvestia, reporting for REN TV.
An official graduate employment ranking has been launched in Russia. At the top of the list are universities and colleges whose former students are most in demand by employers. As Izvestia reports, the data will be updated every year to help prospective students make an informed choice.
In order to keep developing, we need to use this ranking as a basis for planning. In other words, the ranking can become the first step toward further developing the socioeconomic planning system in each region.
The ranking does not assess the quality of education. It takes into account employment data 2 years after graduation and salary. At the same time, the lists are divided into 8 fields of study and then further broken down by different indicators. That's why an educational institution can appear in several rankings at once. The partnership between Russia and China has reached a new level today. The Belyrast logistics terminal in the Moscow region has received and unloaded its millionth container arriving from China. Largely thanks to this major joint Russian-Chinese project, trade cooperation between the two countries has made a significant leap forward in recent years.
2024, 1024 year, the year. A record number has been set for transportation and bilateral trade with China, over 175 million tons, and in the first 5 months of this year alone, 76 million tons have already been transported. That's an increase of more than 7%.
The volume of trade between China and Russia reached $2,044 billion. For 15 years in a row, China has maintained its status as Russia's largest trading partner.
The Belyrast terminal is the largest logistics center of the so-called New Silk Road. This concept involves creating the fastest and most convenient transit routes across Eurasia. The total area of the terminal is 179 hectares. Every day, hundreds of tons of cargo are processed there, both from railways and from trucking companies. In a minute, we'll tell you when the heat will return to Moscow. Today, an important nationwide road safety campaign has started across Russia, and it concerns absolutely everyone. We're talking about pedestrians, the largest group of road users, and also the most vulnerable. Last year alone, there were almost 35,000 traffic accidents in the country involving pedestrians being hit. But there is also a positive trend. The number of pedestrians killed by cars has been decreasing year after year, largely thanks to educational efforts with the public.
The pedestrian is the most dangerous participant in road traffic and the most likely to be injured. Every year, more than 3,500 pedestrians die on our country's roads. Just 5 years ago, that number was 300 to 400 pedestrians higher. This year, this event will be held specifically in these 40 regions. This really covers all of Russia from the far east to Kaliningrad and from north to south. Essentially, we're covering the entire territory.
A large-scale social campaign to promote safety will continue until the end of the year and will reach over 50 million people. As part of this campaign, experts will explain the rules of behavior on the roads, primarily in schools and kindergartens. Sochi is currently experiencing the severe consequences of torrential downpours, which still haven't stopped. The region received 5 storm warnings at once. The most terrifying was the nighttime thunderstorm, during which the roads were instantly flooded. Many cars got stuck on the way. Drivers had to wait until the water receded. In some areas, the water kept rising, and with such force that it swept cars away from where they were parked. Right now, you can find them stuck in the middle of the road or overturned on the roadside. Adler is having a hard time right now. In Dagames, the river overflowed its banks, and while heavy rain is raging on land, several waterspouts have been spotted at sea, and heavy snow has started falling in the mountains. A week of contrast is expected not only in the south, but also in the center of the country, where rain and colder weather are approaching.
We will experience practically the entire spectrum of weather conditions. So that means rainy weather on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and up until Saturday, right? Then there's warm weather, well, close to normal, like today and tomorrow. Saturday will probably be the coolest day this week, about 2 or 3 degrees below normal.
The north wind won't let the air warm up in the sun, but next Monday, it will have to give way to summer warmth. Forecasters say that it will return only on June 24th. And that's all for now. For more information, visit the multi-topic portal SC, our U, and the website REN TV. See you next time.